Hello Marseille, hello Europe, hello Africa. My name is Shimon Yagewo. I am the Brussels correspondent of the magazine Forbes Afrique. Today we'll have the pleasure to moderate a debate on a very interesting topic focusing on Central and Eastern Europe and Africa, how those partners can foster business growth and innovation collaboration. As you may know, the countries of Central and Eastern Europe are rediscovering their old relations with Africa. Over the last few years, a growing number of CEE embassies and trade offices have been established in sub-Saharan Africa, two indicating that the relations between the two regions are gaining renewed attention after an abrupt disengagement of the CEE countries during the 1990s. Indeed, the fall of communism coincided with new strategic policies focusing on domestic transition and NATO and EU integration, to name but a few. However, as the expert Stefan Cibian says, the CE countries have recently realized the importance of being better connected globally, including Africa. But, continues the expert, while recent developments show a growing mutual interest between the countries of the two regions, the path to a stronger re-engagement is by no means without challenges. Against this backdrop, what are the barriers? How can they be overcome? Can SMEs and startups increase economic ties with the continent? The panel will seek to answer, among others, these questions with very distinguished panelists who have very great expertise in the issue. And if I may, I will start to introduce them by starting with ladies. I will say Marie Hanikat, hello, who is the CEO of Garage 48 Foundation. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Nice to be here today.
Very pleased as well. Then I have Madame Katarzyna Nowrot, who is a member of the Polish Academy of Sciences Committee of Future Studies. Welcome. Afterwards, I have Madame Gaëlle Igis-Bouzo, the CEO of Dot Apps in Rwanda. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Pleased to have you. Afterwards, I have Mr. Paweł Hansdorfer, Senior Business International Director at ASECO. Welcome.
Hello. Hello. Bonjour, Marseille.
Bonjour. Last but not least, Mr. Philippe Mibenge, who is the president of the Polish African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Hello, welcome.
Hello, bonjour, Shimon, bonjour, Marseille, and hello to everybody all over the world who are following us.
Thank you for being here. So before maybe moving into deeply into the subject and to dive into this relation, Madame Katarzyna, I would like to have maybe your expertise as an economist and to ask you, what is the current level of collaboration between Central and East European countries with the continent?
Thank you so much, Shimon, and thank you so much for having me in this really interesting discussion today on African economies and Central and Eastern European countries. And let me start to acknowledge what you said at the beginning, that we really see the increase in the dynamics between Central and Eastern European countries and African economies after 2004. So basically, we can say that the last decade and a half, we saw the increase in interest on both sides, meaning that after certain countries from the region entered the European Union. But when we talk about this increased economic dynamics, we are talking about both trade and investment. And then we are also talking about a really a huge number of countries, 48 countries of sub-Saharan Africa, 54 of the whole continents, but also the number of countries from Central and Eastern Europe, which are defined in a different way. So here I will refer to countries which entered the European Union after 2004. And when we just look at the trade dimension, which is the main form of engagement with the countries of the continent, really we need to say that the dynamics has been very, very high after 2004. So basically the trade increased from $2 billion US and doubled only in the 5 years till 2010. When we look at the data today, the African exports, because here in trade we need to talk about exports and imports. When we look at the export in 2020, it reached 5.8 billion according to UNCTAD statistic data. So the dynamics is very impressive, but when we look at the share of that in the total trade, it is 1.5% of Africa's total trade, and it is around 34% of Africa's export to Europe. So then we have to acknowledge it's really small. And when we look at the countries from the region, Poland, the country we both come from, is a leading African partner. And when we look at the data, the recent data, the export reached 1.5 billion USD, and it means 0.5% of Africa export. However, it is 1/4 of African export to CEE. When we look from the other side, indeed, from the side of the Polish export to Africa, it's not exceeding 3%. So basically, it's over 1.4, 1.2, according to the recent data. And still, Poland
So
is...
despite an increase, you can see that
it has
still is very
been
low.
increasing. Yeah, it's still very, very, very low. We have to acknowledge that. But still, Poland is the main trading partner, followed by Czech Republic, but also Bulgaria, Romania. What is very, very interesting. We need to talk about the imbalance between import and export. So there is a huge imbalance on the African side, and so imports, African imports, it's exceeding exports significantly, almost 4 times, and in 2020 it reached more than 22 billion US dollars, and that constituted 4.5% of Africa's imports, again comparing to 30% from Europe, but it is the rise from 1.3% comparing to 2005.
So if I may, I will ask maybe the question, because as you mentioned, and thank you for providing this very insightful insight about the current economic collaboration, but it seems that still there are some barriers. And here, Mr. Pavel, I would like to ask the question, what are the barriers from a private sector perspective in that collaboration? Because as Madame Katarzyna mentioned, it's still under 3% for many countries.
Yeah, well, thank you for Mr. Simon for having me here. First of all, I would like to point attention to the different logic of doing a business in Africa than in Europe. In Europe, the customers we are used to handle is people who are knowing and reliable of their needs. They know what they are looking for. They know where they are heading. There is a clear strategy for companies or for the governments. Especially there is a high demand of the sophisticated solutions right now. We are going more and more digitalized in Europe. In Africa, the question is totally different. They are looking for the partner who will also be not in a relation, a vendor-customer. So we are listening to you, Mr. Customer, what you are willing and what is in your mind, and we will try to actually fulfill your requirements. But rather, they are looking for a partner who will guide them, sometimes also help them throughout some, I would say, digital evolution. And here, the Central Europe has a huge potential because we actually faced that in the last decade on our shoulders, on our experience in the entire region when the market transformation has been performed very successfully. We have a huge offer to the countries of Africa to help them not to fall out in the same pitfalls. So that's also a barrier and the opportunity on the other hand. So that's the one question. The second question, the second thing I see is to deal with Africa, you need to have a lot of patience and and also investment, because it is not a short-term deal like in Europe that you've got a tender, there is 1 month of tender process, maybe 2 months for a solicitation, and then everything is known and you go to the contract execution, or somehow the ease of doing business is somehow very predictable. In Africa, it is actually measured in rather quarters and years, to actually starting from actually dealing with the customers, dealing with a potential partner, actually to the contract execution and then to the rollout. So that's a huge barrier for, especially for a small companies, to actually handle and keep up that pace throughout the entire process. The
but
last
for
thing,
SMEs here, Mr.
yeah.
Dover, maybe, if I
Sure.
may, because I would like to give the floor to the other panelists, but for an SMEs question, I will certainly go back to you on that later on. And here, because you gave from a private, I would say, sector perspective. And Mr. Mibenge, because you are both Polish and African, Congolese to be precise. And also would like to have your point of view on what are the other barriers. You quoted in a recent article, there are two factors, one exogenous and endogenous factors. What are they? You have to mute yourself, if I may. We don't hear.
Great, good. Sounds fine.
Thank you. This is the area of life.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. And I was saying that, first of all, we have to see that the two, our region, like Central Europe and Africa, they don't know too much each other. Yeah, that is the main thing. It's the problem to develop the business together. Is good somehow, and there's an advantage for country from Central Europe that they didn't had colonies in Africa, and these also bring them an advantage compared to Western countries who've been in relation with Africa for near or more 200 years. Yeah. But we have to mention also that during the communism power, there was a lot of, how to say, students also coming from Africa who study, for example, in Central Europe. Yeah. But an example of Poland, I think that we didn't use it the best. For example, my father finished study in Poland. Yeah. And he's been a very big engineer, I think, in the shipbuilding sector. And I think that this shipping building sector, for example, Poland was very strong in it, yeah, and could fund also to try to develop the things. But the problem what's happened that in this period of transformation, Central Europe mainly interests to to get in EU, and they've been very busy on it. It's very clear for if you see about the numbers concerning foreign exchange for Poland, for example. 83% of the exchange of Poland, yeah, this represent more than 200 billions of euro are done with EU only itself, yeah. So, and as Madame Katarzyna mentioned here about maybe 1.5% only with Africa. So you see the situation. And continuing here, talking about Central European country and mainly Poland, because of that we didn't have too much connection with Africa, is also difficult because Poland, for example, they, as Mr. Pharo mentioned, in doing business in Europe or with Western countries in general, if you can say, talk about America, North America, or more developed countries, is easier because they know exactly what they need. Yeah, we know wasting time. Yeah, to understand what they need also. So those countries like Poland also prefer quickly to work with those countries because they are closer, it's easier to communicate. There's a lot of challenges here in Africa. Even now, I'm not sure because there will be big rain. That can happen also in Africa, but maybe we can look at the connection. I'm very happy that we have very good connection today. So far, and let's keep it will stay like that. And
So we're talking about
we had
closer geographical areas, for instance, if I may, Philippe Mupenge, we are talking about also because it's easier. So we are here dealing with private business, I would say. But Marianne Kat here, I would like to, because before this panel we had a short discussion, and you mentioned interesting things about barriers from a public policy levels, and I would like to have your point of view on that.
Yes, I can for sure speak on that a little bit, but also from the perspective of a little bit like of my own country, Estonia. But I
Indeed.
think the main real challenge really here is, like a previous speaker, Philip, was saying, that I don't think these continents or these regions in the world really know each other very well. Yes, sure, like there's not a lot of colonial past. I think it's an advantage, but it's also a disadvantage because a lot of it's new, and it's like a relatively new interest that we're talking about in general. And I just a very practical example that I've seen from Estonian companies who go to Africa and then want to do business there. I don't know, sell whatever digital product we have here, and want to push it to the governments, want to have the governments to use it. They just realize after they have developed, often that happens after they have developed the product, that the infrastructure is not there yet. So in that sense, not understanding what the country really has or what the region has and what you can really sell or what you can push there. So it's understanding the limits in the infrastructure as well before even going to the public policy part.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Then I would see, because we are talking from, we have here the voice of Central Europe, and despite all these challenges you mentioned about infrastructure, about geographical locations, and the transitions, for instance, that have the Central Eastern European countries have witnessed in after the fall of the communism. Here, Madame Gaëlle, I know that despite these challenges, you have created a company, and you were actually awarded in a hackathon, in a competition in Central Europe. How has it helped you to actually being promoted in that region? And if this was very helpful as well?
Well, thank you so much. My story with the EU started on Instagram. So I was scrolling out and saw the post. So I grabbed the opportunity. Normally, I was doing some tours in different schools, and the pandemic came. So when it came, now I was like, what's next? What am I going to do? We were locked at home, and we couldn't move. Schools were closed, and so and create something digital that can also impact my community. So that's where I applied and registered, and we had the best mentors that helped us to where we are now, and we created and now we are making an impact in our community because of the life-changing opportunity. So what I can say, it promoted us with the fundings and with the technical support, all the support they gave us throughout the journey, and we are still with them in the journey. And it will help us also to expand our product to different countries of Africa, which is our aim that is coming next year. But also with the quality and everything, we also would like to expand to Europe. Yeah.
Thank you. So it means you are talking about the digital, and here, Madam Annika, will come back to you, because Estonia is, I mean, considered as a Europe startup nation. And I could discover that this year, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had a virtual event to present Estonia regional strategy for Africa, which seeks to strengthen cooperation primarily through the digital field. Would you say that innovation could be an element that would contribute to fostering business growth between CEE countries and Africa?
I think in Estonia in general, we like the digital background is this is what we have and this is what we're proud of. We don't have anything much else. We have the brains, we have the good strong technical schools from the Soviet background. Thanks to that, I think it's quite similar to Poland. Actually, the technical education is strong. So, of course, this digital innovation and digitalization is something that we can also help from our side to boost this collaboration. This is something that we can take and some bits adapt to the reality, not just to take whatever we have and just put it there, but adaptation is like the key thing, I would say. But yeah, this is the Estonian current strategy really has the strong roots on the digitalization.
And this would help to increase, you think, trade or cooperation between Central European countries and Africa, and how?
In that sense, for sure, because it's very practical. It's very practical experiences. Like Estonian country strategy also comes from the fact that what we can offer to the continent, and what I think what the Central Europe in general has to offer. I think a lot of the background of the companies, it is quite in the technology field, right? So in that sense, a lot of the companies that also move there are from the technology field. And the Estonian development cooperation strategy boosts a lot of like this SME collaboration. That's like their strong focus.
Thank you. So talking about the technological expertise, actually we have here a guest, and I will come here to Mr. Pavel Hansdorfer. I mean, you are a company working, could discover, with numerous African countries. And so I would like to ask you, what technological expertise are you bringing to Africa, and how do you cooperate with African partners? And this strategy also, how it differs itself from other competitors in your sector?
Thank you. So we started our African journey, I would say, in 2015. And the first question, and of course it was not a huge success on the very beginning. Right now, after 9 years of cooperation, we are present in 10 African countries, and managing some significant projects and very important for different for countries and the government. So we are both in West Africa, in the south, and also in the east. So starting from Ethiopia, South Sudan, up to Botswana, and we started to actually ask ourselves a question: how we can differentiate from big IT companies like Oracle, IBM, or whoever else, or our big competitors from Europe. Asseco is right now the biggest IT company in Central Europe, and one of the largest software companies on a European continent. So the question was very basic: how we can differentiate, how our African partners can pick up, because, and why they say, why Asseco? So we reshaped our total strategy for that market, actually insisting on building the local competencies down in the African continent. So actually help governments mainly, or the significant institutions we are cooperating with, to actually build the capacity locally, just deliver the projects by themselves with our help. So that was our key advantage, and actually that opens the discussion, and I would say African hearts to cooperate with us. And this is not a buzzword, but a couple of projects we did, for example, a huge project for electricity in Ethiopia, actually delivering it but with Ethiopian hands. So we teach them how to deliver the project by demo. In Togo, we established this national cybersecurity just with fully 100% Togolese people, actually training them and delivering them the know-how, and then together learning by doing principle go to the success. So that's the just a glimpse. I can talk it for a many for a lot of time, but that's I think what I would like to underline in a short minute. What is
So really
actually the last?
You bring actually, you develop local capacities. This is one of your competitive advantage, as you mentioned, in the cyber defense Africa, in which you were involved with the Republic
Yes.
of Togo.
Yes, so paying taxes locally, just supporting the local markets, paying taxes locally, building the local infrastructure, and actually helping them to grow. And of course, for us, it's also in a synergy. That's the business also for us. And based on our already almost 10 years experience on an African market, we can help and guide the process of mainly digitalization and help in a digital, I would say, revolution for the governments and for the countries. So that's
so you're an example you're an example of a big company involved, a big European Central and East European company involved in Africa. And I mean, a lot of you insisted on SMEs, and I'm really quite interested in that subject because I believe that perhaps it can enhance the cooperation. And here, Madam Katarzyna, I would like to come back to you and to ask you, do you believe that SMEs and startups can actually really increase the cooperation between Central Europe and Africa, and how, in your point of view?
Thank you so much, Shimon. Actually, I do believe it, and I believe it in 2014 and till more or less 17. I was leading the research among the African companies and trying to understand the synergies between the Polish economy and African countries, and trying to see whether the African companies are actually interested to enter the European market, and especially Poland. And we were really positively surprised that the companies, not only big, because we had the whole sample starting with state-owned enterprises and going to the small companies, they had very positive image of Poland, a very positive attitudes to the collaboration, and actually one of the area they were really interested. It was not only the primary resources you could think, but it was really the ICT, the expertise they could get from highly qualified labor. But one of the obstacles, what was mentioned before in the panel, was the lack information about the market and the lack information about the possible partner. So I think this is something we really need to work on, to increase the information about both markets, the Central and Eastern European, but also the African. And it goes to very important dimension of culture. There is a lack of colonial burden, which is fantastic, what was mentioned by Mr. Mibenge, but then there is a lack of knowledge about the culture and about the business culture. And that also leads to lack of knowledge about actually the possibilities and really huge potential of African markets regarding the innovation. If you look at Lagos, if you look at startups in Africa, I think it's really, really amazing. So we still have this misperception of African countries, both at macro level and micro level, as tropical developing countries which rather need assistance in development than markets of the future. So what to do? The second part of your question, I think we really need a long-term strategic, comprehensive and tailored approach and to Africa, because it is really huge market at large and with different kind of possibilities. So I think we need a new format of collaboration and I would mention here necessity of public, private and academia partnership for really in this triangle or triple helix, whatever you call it. And I would call on the focusing on the collaboration, not only on countries, but also on cities, also on certain industries. You can look at the film industry and Nollywood, for example, and innovation lab and universities. Why don't we do some really common projects together and in that respect? And definitely what is needed, what was also mentioned in Poland, that we don't use the diaspora, we don't use the really number of students which were during the communist time in Poland and in other Central and Eastern European countries and during the transformation to increase our knowledge and understanding of African markets.
And here you mentioned the diaspora, element, and here I will turn to Mr. Mibenge, who comes from the diaspora. Actually, we are lucky here to have a member. Do you think when we compare to the numbers, when you have more than 3 million African diaspora in France or even 1.5 million in Great Britain, I believe in Central Europe the diaspora is not that big, but the diaspora could contribute to enhance the cooperation between Central and Eastern Europe and Africa, do you think? Can it play a central role?
Yes, always, but let's say frankly, because as I mentioned, and Mrs. Katarzyna reminded again, that there wasn't big numbers of students, but that was the past. This is a generation of 40, 50 years ago, and those people unfortunately have been not used for the advantage of Poland, of Central Europe. And now you are just seeing now new generation coming, yeah. So maybe in 5 years, Madame Katarzyna considers a lot of students, for example, now of Africa in Lublin, for example, yeah, especially. So they're very good. But what I want to mention here to add that let's be frank, there is no future without Africa. Yeah, Africa is a continent. Is first of all is one of
Unfortunately, it seems that we lost connection. So to move on, and here I will come back to you, Madame Hanikat, because when we talk about startups, SMEs, compared to big companies, they have less financial assets, and sometimes assets are really necessary to penetrate a given market, especially in Africa. So what kind of framework for SMEs and startups would be needed to support them in their expansion, either from Africa to Central Europe or from Central Europe to Africa?
Thank you, Simon. I think, first of all, Africa is such a big continent and it's so diverse. And when you can't really look at it as a whole, like it has so many different parts and so many different hubs that are like light years away in terms of the startup culture and in terms of even supporting the startup culture, and some good examples already from the local system that motivate the others to participate as well. So yeah, when you think of startups in Africa, you think of East Africa, you think of some South African countries here and there, Nigeria, but there's so many countries left. But I do think that at the moment, a lot of it and a lot of the startups that are created, they are still relying a lot on the donor support, on the donor organization support. And I think in some countries, you can't really do anything about it, especially if the ecosystem is very new and it's still evolving. So you have to sort of like create the understanding, even what's a startup, boost the startup culture, create the ecosystem support organizations, support it on the government level. But on some countries, I really do think that it's not necessarily even the country, but the public investments that should sort of like start being more dominant, and some startups that come out like fully from the private investments, rather than the donor support. So I think there are a lot of struggles there. Of course, there's a lot that the government can do. First of all, talk with ecosystem support organizations, acknowledge them, create the structure, create a support system, involve them in all sorts of roundtables, don't keep it separate, keep it together. Like that's a good example that really worked in Estonia, public and private sector working together, sort of developing this strategy. But also, yeah, these private investments that could
So move
just
from a
boost
donor to a private, I would say, framework, yes, to increase investments in this collaboration. Yes?
Yeah, yes. All in all, yes.
Thank you. And this is my last, because time flies, unfortunately, and I will go back to Kigali, and I will ask you if do you agree, how can you, from a startup point of view, shift from a donor to a private investment framework? Gael? No, it seems that we have lost connection, unfortunately.
I think Geza has like Geza, because Geza came out also from the Africa journey. Dope apps, I think they have done an amazing job moving forward. And by all means, like I didn't mean that donor money should be taken away completely. I think it has a point if startup uses it wisely. But the local investment culture has to grow a little bit as well, and perhaps also more investments from Europe and more attention from Europe towards the Africa.
And particularly here in that sense from Central Europe. As I mentioned, unfortunately, time flies, and we will have to close the debate. I mean, I can have a clear understanding that innovation and new technologies can contribute to enhance this innovation collaboration and hopefully also foster business growth. And before we end this session, I will perhaps close the debate by quoting an African proverb, which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go further. Hopefully in this debate, we will establish some backgrounds and some information that will help bringing collaboration together in order to further go far in this particular collaboration. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Pavel in Warsaw. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much
for your insightful opinions. Thank you also, Madam Katarzyna. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Mary, Madam Hanikat, also from Estonia. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And last but not least, because I think that she's came back to us, Madam Igiswilu from the CEO of 3-Day Keza. Thank you as well. It has been a pleasure. Asante sana in Swahili, and it's over to you.
Karibu.
To the audience, I wish that they will enjoy the conference here in Marseille at Emerging. It has been a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.